Kia ora koutou, welcome to the May Writers' Room. Thank you very much for coming along tonight in this just horrendous, freezing weather. It's wonderful to have you all here. We're very pleased tonight to have Jake Mahaffy, who Alex is going to introduce to you in a moment. And first of all, I'm just going to say we've got some young people here from South Seas who are making a promo video for the Writers' Room for us. They are taking some shots of the crowd, but it'll be very sort of brief, fleeting shots, not close-ups, nothing like that. And then they're going to interview some people afterwards, so you don't have to say anything, but they might come and ask you. And this is just to help us kind of promote what we do, particularly with funders and sponsors. So just wanted to fill you in so you're not kind of freaked out about what they're doing here. I'll briefly introduce Alex Duncan, so we're really pleased to have Alex Duncan here tonight. We did have Cushla Dillon, as many of you probably know, and she's actually unwell tonight, so she's very sorry she can't make it and she's disappointed about that. But Alex has fortunately stepped into her place, so thank you, Alex. Alex Duncan is a filmmaker and choreographer who works in music videos, installation, experimental films, filmmaking, dance films and theatre. Really glad to have her here tonight. Her latest film, The Red House, has just been out in cinemas around the country and has had really fantastic reviews and a great reception. So congratulations on that, Alex. She's currently working on a documentary called Return to Planet Mongo. So welcome, Alex, and I'm going to hand over to Alex, who will introduce Jake. Thank you.
Cool, so thank you for coming. I'm really excited to be part of this tonight because Jake Mahaffy is he's an incredible filmmaker in that he has made films in a handmade way, where he's created stories that have reached out to amazing festivals like Venice, Sundance, Rotterdam, South by Southwest, but he's done it in the most independently way possible. He studied filmmaking at RISD and the Russia State of Institute of Cinematography in Moscow, and he has a company called Hand Cranked Film Projects, which he started in Boston. He has also set up 2 film schools at universities in the States. He has developed a film through the Sundance Institute, which is just still in development, and I think he's here now teaching at Auckland University, teaching the masters and undergraduate programs. So I think it's great to have his perspective here in New Zealand. Yeah. So tonight we're going to start with introducing a short film. This is a film that's called Miracle Boy. But just before I do that, I just wanted to just sort of introduce him by sort of speaking out some of these reviews, because I think that it's pretty interesting the way that people have framed his work here. So this is from a publication called Hammer and Nails. They're talking about his film Wellness. They say, "This is the type of film that seems to be artless and is simply mind-blowing." Sprout wrote, "A profound meditation on the blurry line between faith and self-deception." Another of his films, War, which is another feature film, was reviewed by who was in Sundance Film Festival, and they said, "Not just a film, War is a spiritual declaration." Another review from Senses and Cinema said, "A resolutely handmade film, modest, self-aware, and yet epic in its own terms." So there's something in Jake's work which I'm really curious about, which is how he's managed to capture a character and a story without having a large budget, but he has done it in a very honest way. So, can you tell us a little bit about how you made Miracle Boy?
Hi. So this is a great turnout. Thanks for coming out, everybody. And just a quick thing. Like I've been sick and I'm just exhausted. So I'm just if I can't find words, just bear with me. What was the question? How did I make Miracle Boy?
Yeah. So how did you make more? So I've
Sure, yeah. So this is a 17-minute short film that a friend of mine had written a short story, and it was published, and I just made an adaptation, and then went out and shot it over 6 days in the summertime in West Virginia. So the idea was I hadn't made a film in a little while. I wanted to make something that I could get done. A lot of the films I'd made took a long time. Like one feature took me 5 years, and another one took me 2 years to make. So this one I wanted to shoot, get it done, and move on. So the story it's a great short story. It's fantastic. It's called Miracle Boy, so I needed a strong narrative that then I could just hang images onto, which is my favorite part of filmmaking. So I took the story, made an adaptation, went to his hometown where the story is based, which is in West Virginia, in Appalachia, and just went down and shot it. You know, we used all local residents, no actors, just kids and people from that area, that town, volunteers. And I had equipment. I'm a film professor, and I was back in the States, so I had the equipment, and just went down. There were some local people that helped out with the production, helping to organize it. And then so I went down and spent about 5 days organizing it, just finding locations, getting props like the wooden toys, things like that, finding the shed, finding these places, getting the kids together, and then just shooting it over 6 days. And then edited it for about under a year, and then sent out rough cuts to some festivals, got into Venice, and that's it. that's done. Now it's on Vimeo.
Okay. So with the process, so you went into a community, and which is where the short story had originally, well, that was what he was thinking about when he wrote that story. So you went back into that community. How did you involve the people there? Can you tell me about the process of getting them on board and getting them interested in being part of it?
Yeah, so the idea was, so I lived in Rhode Island, so from Rhode Island to West Virginia, it's like, Jesus, I don't know, 600, 700 miles, so it's a trip. Whatever that is in kilometers, sorry, I don't know. So we went, so I drove down there with the equipment in the back of the Jeep, and sorry, the question was, so we went down there, and so Pinckney, who's the writer, he's from there, and he's like a local celebrity, so the fact that he, it was his deal, he showed up for the beginning of it when we did this little event to get people interested, and so that helped.
Like a party, or?
Yeah, no, it was just it was like an informational session or something. So it was at this local theater. They just gave the room to us for free. Said, if you're interested in hearing about this thing, if you want to be in it, if you want to hear about it, if you want to participate in any way, show up for this thing. So we kids put flyers around. We got in the local paper because no one's ever made a film there ever, and never will again probably. So that was the thing people showed up to. They were curious, and we did it. We said, okay, if you want to be in the film. And so we did the intro. I stood there, I said, hey, this is me, here's Pinckney, this is who we are, this is what's going to happen. And then people just said, yeah, I've got a barn you can use, or I've got a field, or some kid said, or some mother said, I want my kid to be in your movie. And we just sort of shuffled through all that crap and got to the people that we could work with. And there was no real audition, it was just for the people. It was just looking at kids, could they, could they look you in the eye? Could they hear what you're saying and not,
So there was no audition, but you sort of interviewed them, or you?
Yeah, just talked to them. Just
all in that one day. Or?
It was like an hour. Yeah, just an hour. Because it's because what it comes down to is you don't have in this kind of filmmaking, you don't have a lot of options. I mean, you're not paying anyone. It's who's going to show up. If someone's willing and able, then that's your man, or that's your woman, or your kid, or whoever, because that's all it comes down to. It's not about what they look like, or do they fit the part. It's just, are they willing and able, are they going to show up, and then you can make it with whatever you've got, so.
And then can I talk about, because working, as many of you know, working with kids can be it's a real particular thing. So you had this short story. Can you talk about the writing process as such, or devising process, or how did you work with these kids to get these performances did they know the story?
With Miracle Boy, I've just made an adaptation of the script, try to make it cinematic in a way, to visualize things that were, internal.
Did you show that to them?
I think so. Yeah, I didn't expect them to memorize the lines. So working with non-actors, I never expect anyone to memorize the lines because it's a total killer as far as performance. So I gave them the script so the parents could see what it's about. Like the kid gets his pants ripped off, the mother's got to know. It's not we just shoot the scene and she's like, what's going on? So they take his pants off to look at his scars. He's got his feet chopped off. So the kids take his pants off to look at his legs. But somebody's got to know about that. So, but I don't. So the parents review it. The kids have some idea of what's going on. The parents can explain it to them. And that's it. The kids don't need to know what the story is. They just got to be in the scene. So, so I would feed them the lines. The script is really for people to understand what the general, idea is, what we're aiming for. And then when we shoot it, so for example, when I'm shooting those scenes there, I'm shooting it. I've got the camera, and I'm doing the sound, and I'm directing them. So I'm giving them lines. I'm feeding them lines off camera. So the kid there is like, oh, she made you watch TV and watch cartoons, but that's me immediately before that saying, they made you watch cartoons. He's like, they made you watch cartoons? And I keep doing that over and over again until he got the right performance. I'm like, okay, and let's get the next line and just feed it to him, and then I'd edit around the kid's performance.
So can you talk about the relationship, from your perspective, between directing and writing? Is that something that happens together, or are those separate things? Because within a film like this, you've got the narrative, and then you've got maybe like a version of the sort of screenplay. But it sounds like you're very much you're devising it as you go on set. So that's the director aspect coming in. Is there, do you feel like you've got time to? Are you sort of rewriting it in that moment, or have you sort of tried to work out as much as you can before, so that it's?
I definitely want to work out as much as you can beforehand. When I was like, for that was a joy to write because the structure's already there. The characters and the short story were there. It was really tight, and then adapting it was just visualizing it. So, and I added scenes, I cut scenes out, I changed things around, but so I definitely wanted the adaptation, the screenplay, to be as tight as possible. But then knowing, because I've done this before, knowing going in that when I'm shooting, the screenplay really isn't, like, that's the first thing to go out the door. I'm not going to hold on to the screenplay. I'm not going to hold on to the dialogue, because it's got to be at that moment, whatever I'm shooting, whatever is available to me in real life on camera is what matters, not what was written before. Like the sort of screenplay's excuse to be there and to gather and get people together and get performances and get images, but that's it. It's sort of a guide, but I don't, it's the first thing to go. So if the kid can't say the line, if the line's just not working, if I can't get the shot or whatever, then we just change it. We just try and fit around what's available. And that's a tough thing. It takes a real facile, I think, facile mind to be able to, when you have an intention and you believe in what you're intending to do, and yet you have to only, you have to work, you have to adapt, adapt to what's available. Because you know going in, you're never going to get what you want. And you have to make that, and the hope is that you get something better than what you ever wanted,
And when you look at that film now, so, you've finished it, what's your relationship with that now? Like, do you care what happens to it once it's finished?
No, I care. Yeah, I care. Oh, is it not loud enough?
No,
I gotta really put it up, sorry.
Pretty close.
Yeah, okay, sorry guys. Should we start over? No, I care. Yeah, certainly I care, but only to a certain degree, because I'm not really in control of what happens beyond that. I know as a filmmaker, I have a certain degree of control over the making of the film, but then once it's made, I can't make people watch it. I can't make people like it. I have no control over that at all, really. So I'm willing to forego that. and I really don't have a lot of time to deal with it anyway. So, no, of course I'd love people to, see it, and that, to be, I don't know, I guess people to see it really, but I know that I don't have a lot of control over that. So I basically, after I make a film, it takes so much time and effort, I just cut my losses and kind of like just skip out on the rest of it. So I haven't pursued sort of the exhibition or the audience engagement part, which,
And with this one, I mean, it got into Venice.
That's it.
And so, but I mean, so this is an amazing thing though, that it steps into this festival, and then you sort of go, oh, that's.
Well, no, I mean at that point. So I mean, you guys probably, a lot of you know. I mean, so to get it into festivals, you typically either, if you know someone at festivals, you send it to people you know and say, here, I just made this film, are you interested? And either they are or they aren't. And then there's a submission process. You pay whatever, 40, 50 bucks or euros or whatever, send it out, or people ask for it and they review it and they say yes or no. And so it's a whole process of paying money and sending your DVDs out. And it's a job. So the idea is with that, you send it to the sort of the bigger festivals, like Sundance or Cannes and Venice. And if it gets in there, hopefully people see it and like, oh yeah, we saw it there, let's show it at our places. And then it just sort of gathers its own momentum and shows around. Or it doesn't, and you, at that point, pursue, distribution or, exhibition and things like that. And I'm just afraid of like touching it. But, and if it doesn't, then you've got to pursue that whole thing, and that's just I just didn't have time. I had other things going on.
I've taken this off a piece of writing that you wrote about it. So you say, Jake says, wellness was shot as an exercise, an experimental project to help free write in the deed, which is another project, which is a longer project, which we'll come to that in a moment.
Yeah, we're going to show the trailer. Yes, this is a feature film, a feature-length film that started as an exercise in learning about naturalistic dialogue for another screenplay for a different project entirely. But it just turned out to be interesting enough to continue and made it into a 90-minute film.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So it starts off as a devised process and then ends up as a full-blown film. So, you've got some ideas that you want to sort of work out in terms of working with script and dialogue and devising. How do you get from that to realising a whole film? Big question.
So the idea is based on the character of Thomas. Is that, you hear me? The character of Thomas Lindsay, based on a sort of synthesis of different people I've known, and the idea was just to have someone. The premise began with someone who has episodic interactions with other characters, because I knew I could rely on Jeff Clark, who plays Thomas Lindsay, that guy, to show up and be committed to the project. And other people I might get for an hour a day, but I couldn't get commitments. So it would have to be him engaging with people at different times. So I figured, okay, pyramid scheme salesman is perfect. He'll do his pitches, and then we'll follow his narrative thread. So that's where that came from. And I mean, I think I was more tricking myself at that point. This was the second feature film, the first real narrative film that I'd made, and I needed to trick myself into doing it rather than tackling some huge project like this, like a 90-minute feature, which again I also shot single-handedly. I shot, recorded, sound, directed, wrote, all that stuff, edited myself. There's no crew at all. In order to trick myself into do that, I had to just say, well, I'm just screwing around. And but then when I got the footage back and looked at it, it just was so hilarious and great that I had to go back for more, And then I realized the premise built the whole sort of structure about his scam and what happened.
So can you tell me a bit about the writing process, or
for that?
Yeah. How did you build the structure? At what point did you go, wow, okay, I've got a story?
I don't remember really. I mean, it was just him. it was, I mean, I knew the central idea of a guy trying to sell something that doesn't exist, basically believing in something that doesn't exist, which is familiar to me from religion. I mean, the financial scam, I mean, it's everyone's situation more or less, believing in a system that just doesn't, there's nothing there to support it, and yet continuing on despite all evidence to the contrary. So it's totally natural, everyone does it. So I just saw this as sort of a little version of that epic story. So I just saw that at once, and there was no real, I didn't think about it, there was no, it was in my head, you know, I don't really know how it wasn't a high concept idea that I had to work out.
But when you go, so you go, okay, so this Saturday I'm going to go out and we're going to shoot some scenes.
Yeah.
Have you written down what you're going to shoot?
Right. Yeah, so I had a lot of that written out. Like, I knew he had a seminar at the end where he loses, like everyone shows up and he has nothing to give, to sell, and he's trying to sell something based on a promise. So I knew some things, yeah, so I knew I had some of those scenes played out, and then after I'd shoot and edit, then I'd go back, look what I had, piece together and realize, oh, I need more of this, or I need a contradiction to that, or I need to, so I'd sort of flesh it out over this was shot over about 20 days in the course of 2 years, for under $2,000 of expenses. And it was basically, I'd shoot for a week, go back home. Again, this was in Pennsylvania, I was living in Virginia, on the East Coast at the time. So I go back, edit it, look at it, say, okay, this is where this is going, this is the most interesting part of this, I need more of that, or, you know, I need to change this up and reshoot that. So I just sort of sculpt it, you know, over time, which is a great way to work if you can afford it, as time-wise. I think it's a great way to work. If you don't have to cram it all into like a 30-day shoot or something. But again, like 2 years, that's a big commitment.
And I mean, it's a beautiful film because it does, I mean, it's a very beautifully constructed framework and narrative. It won the Grand Jury Prize at South by Southwest. But it feels very much like a documentary. There's a sense of that these characters are real, these people are real people. How can, like when I watched it, I was asking myself, obviously the main character knows that he's an actor and that this is something that he's doing. Did other people know that they were acting?
Yeah, no, so the film, I mean, one thing about that I think one of the things that's interesting, at least to me, about filmmaking is that there has to be a process of discovery in the making of the film. So, like fulfilling a plan, having a script, and then just illustrating the plot on set is just mind-numbingly dull to me. So when there's a process of discovery, not knowing as a director what might happen next, that excitement, that anxiety will relate or will be communicated to an audience. So when an audience sees it, they don't, like, all bets are off. You don't know what's going to happen next because it's not going to follow the typical paradigm, what we all come to expect. So the only way to do that is not coming up with some crazy batshit idea at the beginning and fulfilling, because still it's going to be rote and sort of too deliberate, but actually going in with a plan and yet allowing for everything to fall apart. It's a constant process of something falling apart and trying to pull it back together. So that process of discovery, you try and do it in the writing process, but it's really hard because you're stuck in your whole head the whole time. So the more external contradictions you can impose in your writing, that's going to help. And then when you take whatever you have written and shoot it, you're going to have limitations imposed on you, and that's a good thing. You know, I think if you're just fulfilling your plan, then you're really not getting, sort of the excitement of real life. So anyway, so having that sort of that constant tension of holding things together was helpful, right? And then just insisting, basically, in the shooting and the editing process, I prioritized the performances of the characters. So it wasn't about someone saying the right line, hitting a mark, and I threw out imagery. I just made it look like shit as much as possible, this film with the shaky cam aesthetic and all that, because I had to concentrate on just performance. So I edited by audio. So even if the shot looked bad, if the because it's what you hear. If the performance was naturalistic, then I kept the shot based on the audio, and I edited the whole film like it was like as a radio play, and used whatever imagery happened to work, what happened to be there. So.
Well, and I'd love to hear a little bit. I'd like to show a clip. That's a scene where he's sort of talking himself up in the mirror. He's sort of practicing.
Yeah, this is him. Yeah, so he just had a meeting with this guy about how to best sell wellness, and he's practicing these different techniques for a pitch.
Just before we show it, can you talk a little bit about your relationship with the main protagonist? Is he just this brilliant guy that comes out with these fabulous stories, or?
So again, this is somebody who was just willing and able. It's Jeff Clark, and no experience acting, but just willing to do whatever you tell him to do, which is really critical. So and this is not him at all. You'd think, oh, he's just himself. This is not Jeff Clark. If he was here and you went up and talked to him, that's not him. So that's a character, but we couldn't build it. I couldn't build that character by telling him what to do. I had to get it in other ways, through directing him and sort of. It's like psychotherapy. Like you can't tell the person what they need to do. You have to get them to get to that point, so they do it themselves. That's the only way ever therapy would work. Or same thing with directing, is you get that actor to do the thing they need to do, but through a process of their own discovery. You don't just say be sad and they act sad or something. So, but with him, so what we would do is I just shot a lot of footage. Nothing was precious, so there was no pressure. And literally, it's me and him in a motel room, no one around, and we're just joking. I'm having a good time, or I get him exhausted, so he can't think too much. Because obviously, like with writing or with acting, there's so much self-censorship going on, lack of confidence, other things, that if you get someone into a state where they're tired, distracted, confused, relaxed, then you're going to get better work. Do you know what I mean? So he would do one thing, which was his usual, like his shtick, which was just bad acting, really horrible. And we have to work through all that sort of overwrought performative stuff, which I've got hours and hours of it, and not make him feel bad about it, because I can't do what he does. I'd never get in front of a camera. Until we got to the stuff where he didn't even know what he was doing anymore. So this right here it's on YouTube. This scene, and you can watch it, and it's a little narrative in its own right. It was made from an hour at least. It's like 2 minutes from an hour's worth of footage. And that's why it's cut, so it's choppy and all that stuff. So, and that's from, I would feed him lines, or we'd talk about stuff beforehand, and I'd just be like, hey, talk about this thing, and just keep going. So I'm back there laughing my ass off, or feeding him lines, and he just repeat it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the film is called Wellness. So have a look for it on YouTube. It is an incredible film. I'd love to just talk a little bit about your background, because you did your film training in Russia, and I'm wondering if the philosophy or the methodologies that you learnt there, like it seems to me that you have a very strong and rigorous approach to filmmaking, which is very much something that you've developed yourself. But can you tell me where that came from? And then there's the independent film scene in America. What have your influences been?
So I'm not. I went to RISD, which is an art school around school design, and so I came to film through visual art, fine art, drawing, which is something I do. So the image was always important to me. So that's where I started with. Russia was, as far as training, was a bit of a disaster. There's not much to say there. And then I went for my graduate degree at the Art Institute of Chicago, another art school. So it's only recent. So the image was always primary. I'd always try and find images that were inherently narrative, or framed, composed images that were inherently narrative. My favorite part of filmmaking is the directing and cinematography. It's just pure joy. And then gradually I worked into performance. And basically because of just wanting authentic performances. You know, I cringe when I see inauthentic performances. So how do I get to that? Basically it's just never, I mean, all you have is that moment, and you have to insist yourself, be aware of whether or not this is playing, you know, that performance is playing. If it isn't, you just have to keep going, try and work your way around to get something that you respond to, you know. So, I don't know, that doesn't really answer the question, but...
Yeah. But, so in America, like it seems like there is a very strong sort of independent film culture. Have there been particular filmmakers that were around when you were sort of coming into filmmaking that you, I don't know, that you sort of looked up to or were influenced by, or is there, you know, have there been, or the particular works that you sort of go, oh, that's like a precedent for the type of work that I've wanted to make, or is it much more of an organic process that you've sort of discovered as you go along?
Yeah, nothing. I mean, there's filmmakers that I like and films I like, but nothing. No, I mean, as far as a model, not really.
Yeah. So you've constructed your own methodology around the rules of your work.
Yeah, I mean, it's been just necessity. I mean, I haven't. I don't come from any kind of wealthy background. So I had to make films as cheaply as possible. I knew my films weren't going to make any money, so I couldn't justify taking other people's money to throw away for the sake of art, you know. And and I couldn't pay people, so I had to shoot everything myself. I could depend on myself to show up. I tried bringing people in for free, and I'm not that great at, just like with the tail end of it with distribution, exhibition, pursuit, and all that. I'm not great with the organization, you know, building the apparatus around filmmaking. So I'll just do it myself rather than putting all that effort into getting people together, organizing, funding, all this stuff to build an organism that then shoots. I'll just take the camera and go shoot myself. So that's sort of my approach. So they're made single-handedly, all these films. Miracle Boy had the most help ever. There was a guy who was helping out with producing, and some people that were, you know, PAing and stuff. But again, I was the only one crewing it. That means you don't really have lights, and these are limitations that when you recognize them, when you're aware of them, you just accept it and make the most of it. And it's, you know, like you've heard, I mean, it's helpful to have those sort of guidelines, and you don't sit there dreaming about what could have been, because every film is a combination of intention and circumstance. It's never going to be perfect, and you just decide whether you're going to use those circumstances or not. So that's just what I do.
And I've heard about this project, Free Indeed, which you developed is it 2009 or 2005 through the Sundance lab. Can you tell me, because it seems like, I mean, on one hand I go, amazing, you know, if you go out and you do everything yourself, you have control over everything. You may not have an enormous budget, but you for sure can make a film. Then there's this other approach which is going through a system, going through a lab. Can you talk about that project a bit in terms of the different approach and the pros and cons of developing something sort of more in a sort of in the system type way?
Well, I mean, if you're shooting on your own with no budget, really, or micro budget, or, you know, this scale, it's not that you're in total control. You just realize what you don't have control over. So I really, you know, again, like, I don't have control over, you know, with these films, who shows up. Whereas if I have a budget, then I can, you know, get people to show up. So it's just different kinds of control, I think, and it'd be great to have a budget. So Free Indeed was a script that a feature-length film script that went through the Sundance labs and got a lot of grants in the States. You know, went to different labs. And
can I ask, why did you seek out financial assistance for that one?
I didn't. But so my first feature was at Sundance and at the festival, and then I guess people in the institute had seen it and they asked if I had a script to submit. I was like, hell yeah, you know. And I went home and wrote one really quick and and sent it in, and it got in, and so at that point it got more funding just from that. It was like, oh God, you know, of course I'll take support. I'd never gotten a grant before, and so it just sort of started that, and then so I figured it was since it'd gotten so much support financially and that this is a film that could actually get funding because it had recognized, it's sort of validated by these institutions. But we still haven't shot it, you know, it's just sort of floating on and on and on.
So the funding, those mechanisms can be a curse as well as...
No, it's just my I mean, it's not necessarily, it's fine, it's just that because different people have come on to help to try to produce it, and I'm all too eager to give that away to someone to produce, please, but it just still isn't getting made. So I could at any moment just say no, I'm going to take it back and do it on my own, but at this point, being here, you know, I'm going to have money to go back to the States. It has to be shot in the US. So it's just kind of floating, you know.
So there's an interesting thing about like what one's goals and aspirations are as a filmmaker. Can you tell me a little bit about what is it that you, when you sort of go, I've succeeded, or what is success for you?
I think it's just project to project, whatever the film is at that specific moment. So each film has I have my specific goals, ideas about an individual project, and so, you know, it's different for each film, whatever those goals are. The best thing, the most exciting thing is when it exceeds your intentions, you know, when whatever you've accomplished surpasses, your mind couldn't even conceive of what, you had one idea and then you make the thing and it just blows your mind. It's like, oh, that's what I was making, or that's what I've discovered. So that's really exciting. You know, but that's pretty much it.
And can I ask, how long have you been in New Zealand?
4 months, I think.
4 months, cool. So, what brought you here?
I was just talking about, we wanted to get out of the US so, as quickly as possible. So I brought my whole family. I'm teaching at the University of Auckland. I've got a position there, and so me and my family came over. Just, you know, personal reasons, political reasons. It's just we wanted to be as isolated as possible from the rest of the world.
Like environmental?
And still have a job. Yeah, I mean, environmental, political, social, everything. Yeah.
So have you had a chance to see a bit of the film-making culture here? Like it seems, like it seems here we are sort of isolated, and we've got the potential in some ways to do something because we are small and we have this sort of number 8 wire, this mentality of like you can do it yourself. We came here not that long ago, and people have sort of got rather than a specialising mentality of sort of going up through a system and specialising in one thing, it seems here that people are quite cross-disciplinary and do a range of different tasks to get the work done. So you'd think that in a way this is the perfect environment to create sort of innovative, different types of films, as opposed to the sort of more sort of steadfast sort of Hollywood films or sort of more commercial films. Have you? And yet we've also got this film commission, which sort of feels like a lot of the way that we make films. We're sort of looking at being judged, or is our film are we going to be successful in getting the funding, and are we going to get permission to make our film? Do you have any thoughts on this, on the way that film is being made in New Zealand from your very brief time here?
Yeah, I wouldn't. I would get stoned. No, I don't. I can't. I don't. I've only seen a few. I'm pretty ignorant, and I'm trying to get caught up now that I'm here. I've seen a few films. No, I don't. I mean, I think it sounds like the Film Commission's great. I mean, there's nothing like it. I mean, I guess there are in other countries. There's nothing like it in the States for sure. That scale of funding for for filmmaking is just, it's incredible, the size of the grants. So that seems great. I mean, with like the free Indeed thing, I've seen other people with the problem. It's easy to get to wait for support to make a film, certainly, and that's what's happening with free Indeed, despite knowing better. But I let that float while I make other films. I'm not doing nothing, waiting for someone else to help me make my film. So that's something you can do. But I don't. Yeah, I mean, that's a great thing now, is you don't need anyone's permission to make a film anymore, because you can. I mean, the equipment's really cheap.
Yeah. Do you think? I mean, because like, is there a? Seems like filmmaking can be cheap, or it can be very expensive. Is it possible to find a balance between art and commerce, about being able to follow your vision in creating the film and have the resources to do it? Or do you think that there's always a compromise there?
I know nothing about commerce. That's why I'm making films. I mean, I have no idea about the financial side. I mean, it seems like for most people, and anybody who has the luxury of considering making films, has access to the resources, the necessary resources, which is just some sort of recording implement, whether it's a cell phone or old VHS camera or something. You know, it's really not that. That's sort of the least important part of it. So the resources are available. You know, it's just a certain scale of filmmaking, I guess. So I assume that I have a very, the window, my scale is very specific. You know what I mean? So, it's, I feel, I'm an independent filmmaker, so I get to write my own job description, and it doesn't include commerce. You know what I mean? It's, I just make the best films I can in the given circumstance and situation, and then whether or not I don't assume that it's going to make money, and that's why I've got a teaching position. Do you know what I mean?
Great, beautiful segue, because this is my last question, is it seems to me that you have been quite clever in a way, that some people might have a production company or go through the traditional sort of filmmaking approach, or through the film commission, or but the structure that you have underneath you is the university. Can you talk a bit about your relationship between your teaching practice and your filmmaking? Do those things sort of weave together, or is there something about the research which informs the filmmaking?
Yeah, it was a brilliant idea. It was my wife's idea when I was still a grad student. I was making a feature film for my thesis, and she said, you got to get a job. Oh my God, really? And teaching was, I had a degree, so it had to be, it was going to be teaching, and it's a great gig because you get, you get a lot of time off. It's sort of a subsistence paycheck. It's not big money, but you've got the university support. You got a steady schedule. You're not on call for any sort of commercial gig that pops up, so you can plan ahead. And you've got resources for whatever, research, equipment, this kind of stuff. So it's a great thing. Plus, then teaching, if you can do it, it's fun. Ideas, just keeps just sitting in class, hashing out ideas. Keeps your brain flexible, and you just take things and apply it to your own work. So it's a great situation.
Do you feel compelled to always have your own film project alongside the teaching, or is it something that that you're fine with having big breaks between projects? Or how does
I've got tons of ideas. I mean, I've got so many different. I've got several feature screenplays, a lot of shorts written, ready to go. I've got shorts that I'm editing. I've got other media projects I'm working on. So I'm always working on things all the time. Yeah, I mean, and I think that's the only way to go into a class with any kind of confidence, is actually be making something. Because that's all I can do is talk about what I know, what my experience is. So.
Great, thank you. So I'd love to turn it to the floor. We've got 15 minutes for some questions.
How do you know when an idea is good, and have you devised a method for kind of testing that out before you really invest in it?
So everyone can hear these questions, right? So, okay, so how do you know if an idea is good? I think, or at least for me, I think almost any idea can be good, but it's all in the execution. So, I mean, if you gave a soap opera, like a really cheesy soap opera script to a good director, they'll make something amazing out of it, because it's all in the execution of that thing. That's why in a lot of screenwriting, people are trying to come up with high concept, completely original ideas that never existed in the history of humanity, and it's pretty much impossible. So I don't concern myself too much with the idea. Is just the way I think an idea is good is if I get excited by it. You know, if I'm really, wow, I'm going to spend time doing this. There's a lot here to explore, to discover. That's it. It's just my emotional response to it. If it just sort of, it starts an avalanche of more ideas, you know, I can visualize exciting things. So that's sort of how I go. And then knowing that the shooting of it is what's going to make it good or bad. Because you give a great script to a bad director and it's going to be a shit movie. So it's not so much the idea as much as the execution, I think. As far as testing it, I don't, I'm not sure.
But do you pitch them to people, or have you got buddies that you go to regularly? Or?
I wish. No, that's it. I would do that if I had if I had buddies. No, I mean, I'll talk about it. You know, yeah, I'll share it. You know, talk about it. But oftentimes it just goes. I don't know. There's no process there's no pitching for sure. And it often changes as I talk about it to people. It'll gradually refine itself. Because people, like, I'll tell somebody, like, what does it mean? So I'll explain it more. Oh, that's the point I need to talk about, or, you know, so it'll shift as I explain it, or, you know what I mean? So it gradually refines itself as people become involved. Yeah.
Somebody else?
I saw a medley of short films on YouTube that really stunned me. It was something about a mannequin being dragged out of a barn and set on fire. Was this yours or one of your students? We haven't seen any of these.
Yeah, no, I remember that.
Information of that kind of film here tonight, but what struck me was just this more raw creativity in the image.
Yeah.
Is there anything on your clips in this line from the short films that are more simple, less narrative, more of a serial?
Yeah, so that's a
This is why I came actually.
Oh yeah.
We haven't talked about this stuff much.
Yeah. Well, if you have any specific questions, I'm happy to talk about it. That's my undergrad film, my thesis film from Ricci when I was a student, and I did a couple of thesis films, and that was one of them called Egyptalo. A very experimental narrative, absolutely. Again, this single-handed approach, shot in 16mm. It was like a 25-minute short, and I mean, it was that's coming from my goal there, among other things, was just that every image be like, there's no throwaway images. You know, there's not, like, I don't think of images in a film as pictures that illustrate a plot, but each image is narrative, and then in sequence they create a meta narrative. You know, so there's nothing there that's just a snapshot of something. But that every shot sort of exists on its own, like a, you know, just framed and composed that way. So with Egyptalo, though, I was, God, I don't know where to begin. That was so long ago, but I still think it's, in a lot of ways, it's like that first film, exactly because it's so raw and direct. It was very expressionistic. It's done something I've never been able to recapture, really. That film. But I don't know if you have a specific question. I have, over the course of time, you know, my work has, at least in the feature films, has become more narrative, more traditionally narrative, less expressionistic.
And why is that? If you don't have to fit in to a particular a model of filmmaking. You can make anything you want.
Yeah. I think it's as I've become more interested in other people and in behavior, that's sort of come about. So I have other projects that aren't that way. Like wellness is pretty straightforward. So it's just a change in interest. You know, a lot of what made Egyptology so expressionistic and experimental was that I was avoiding naturalistic behaviors. I was avoiding people. I was avoiding actors.
And you were a young man.
Yeah, well, that too. But it has its own quality. I mean, it's unlike anything. I'm still kind of amazed. I look at it like, God, how could this happen? So yeah, it's something I'd like to go back to, certainly, at some point.
Cool. Any other questions or observations?
Were there any specific challenges that came, because Rogue Boy was based on a short story, were there any specific challenges that came from adapting someone else's work and then putting your own spin on it or your own vision on that?
Well, I mean, as far as the writer's concerned, he's a good friend of mine, so there was no issue there, and he completely trusted me and knew that it would be okay. And he didn't care anyway, because he already wrote the story. He's got nothing to lose. So, and I just did it. I didn't ask him. I just did the adaptation. I sent him the copy of the screenplay and said, yeah, that's great, go. And then, and it was an excuse for us to get together again. And then it was just simply how to make that, practically speaking, it was just a matter of taking the best parts of the short story and somehow visualizing it cinematically so that, there's a lot of internal stuff going on in the story that wouldn't work. Dialogue that wasn't naturalistic. So being able to switch that up and make it, work dramatically. That's it. Yeah.
So if somebody came in and offered you like a large crew and a large budget, would you prefer to work on your own, kind of being in control, or would you take that on and I guess move forward, creating something bigger and better?
Did you guys hear that up the back? So the question was, if somebody came in and offered him a big crew, a big budget, would he go for that, or would he prefer to continue to work with himself and his own, sort of doing a more of a sort of organic, independent type film?
I'd love to work that way. But it's a matter of what the cost is to it. Usually it comes at a cost. So if it was just, here's a bunch of money and a crew, go make your film, of course I'd love to work on that way. It's just, because it's really, this kind of directing it's a lot of puppeteering. There's not a lot of collaboration, creative collaboration going on. I mean, I'm literally DPing, recording sound, directing, producing, everything at the same time, knowing that I'm going to edit it later on my own. So it's just, the film is just, you have to know everything all at once, which is great. It's a great way to keep your brain active, but I'd love to be able to collaborate with people where I can have a great DP, trust the sound guy, have creative actors who are really good and be able to just get them to make great performances. That'd be a blast. It'd be pure joy. But no one's ever done that, right? So I'm not gonna, what am I gonna, I'd love to, I don't know. It'd be great. It's a great thing to think about, but it's never gonna happen. So it's just keep doing it on my own, make it work however I can. Yeah. And bigger isn't necessarily better. It's just more need to make that money back, I think, in the end. It does limit the kind of things you can do, right? Knowing that you're not you can't spend or get money back on a thing, but it's, you just accept it. It'd be great if I was, I don't know, like an Olympic athlete or something, which is never going to happen. Or something, I don't know. It's like, it's great to think about, but it's just never going to happen. So that's like the, money for nothing. I'm just not at that. I'm not at that place in the world. I never will be. So.
Yeah. So you work within the limitations. Yeah. And in a way, is that funny thing of limitations often create the beauty, or often bring out the best aspect.
If you can recognize them ahead of time, do you know what I mean? Money's the obvious thing. Everyone knows, I don't have enough money to make the film. That's obvious. Okay, so then you scale down. You find out what qualities you do have to work with. The less obvious limitations are time. Okay, you don't have as much time as you might want. really unobvious to a lot of people is the amount of talent they actually have. Being able to recognize that, your experience, all those things playing into being able to recognize them ahead of time. So I think the biggest problem is just hitting your head against the wall with what you intend and what's actually available to you. If you have a lot of money, you can buy out reality. You can change the circumstance because you pay people to change it for you. But if you can't change the circumstance, you only have that location available because it's the one place that's free, then that's what you have to use. You have to make it work, and then it's a different sort of exercise for to make that work. So if that performance, that person can't memorize dialogue, then you can't insist on them saying the dialogue, no matter how great it is on the page. You have to work around that limitation and say, okay, what can they do, and figure it out quick and get the best possible performance, or cut them out of the performance, or do something, so it's just a different set of sort of guidelines to go by. That if you have money, then you can fire the person and hire somebody else, or rent a new location. You can do those things. Just money solves those problems. But when you don't have it, you just have to adjust your concept, without compromising the central, whatever's the most important thing to you.
Okay, and we've got time for one more short question.
You said, well, you made wellness to understand naturalistic dialogue, so what can you tell us you've learned about that dark art?
Did you guys hear that up the back? So he said he made wellness to learn about naturalistic dialogue. What can he tell us about that dark art?
And that was the excuse I made to start the project, get myself going. But really that it's going to come through, one of the things I learned is just comes through performance. No matter what's on the page, just adjusting, allowing your ear to tell you what's real, and then insisting on getting it right. Because the great thing about working this way with untrained, non-professional actors, I didn't have to deconstruct bad training. They knew that I knew more than them, so there was no argument about what's the right thing to do. You know what I mean? They were there because they just enjoyed the process. So it had to be enjoyable. It wasn't about the paycheck. It wasn't about fame and fortune or anything. And then so if I said no, let's do it again, or I'd trick them and do other things to try and get different performances out of them, they're just willing to do it. And they're just insisting on it. If it didn't sound right, if I didn't believe it, if I cringed, if it sounded just not believable to me, then we had to keep going and get it, just keep going and going and going. So that was really it, and it takes some confidence to tell to keep going, because people are waiting around like, oh, didn't you get it yet? Come on, let's move on. But there was no one to say that because there was no crew. But if that was the case, to have the confidence, just insist on getting it till it sounds right, because in the end, I think as the director, it's about judging, having good taste, simply to know if something's right or not, and then telling everybody, okay, we got it, let's go, the next thing. So, I don't know if that's really an answer. There's no one thing that I learned from it, but that's it.
That's great. Cool, so I would love to thank Esther and Eloise from Script to Screen for setting up this wonderful event, and especially I'd like to thank Jake.